My mama always told me to have something to look forward to. Well, last night I was looking forward to Saturday because there's 2 episodes today. One is going to be about Inchstones, where we do the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day as we're working through today. It's May 25th, 2024, and we're going to be going through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day, and it's amazing how these things speak. So last night I was going through it, and then even this morning I woke up and I just heard my mom's voice. You have to have something to look forward to. You have to have something to look forward to, and she would do this with vacations with my aunt, all these things. And the tough part about it is towards the end, I believe, my mom passed away in 2018, and I believe she got to a point where she didn't feel like she had that much more to look forward to. But as a kid, she was always like, if it was Monday, she was always saying, Friday is coming. Saturday was a big day, although my pops would make us do the ships, as I've told you guys before. And if you haven't heard about them, they were little cassette tapes that we had to send out from a millionaire course that my dad couldn't afford. And the millionaire course would teach you how to sell the millionaire course to other people to become a millionaire. So that a lot of times was Saturday for myself and my brother. But as I've gone along in my life, I've always, gone back to that thought. And my mom, with my mom saying, is we have to have something to look forward to. And I want to ask every one of you, do you have something to look forward to right now? And the challenge is not looking too forward, not getting so far in the future that we don't enjoy today, that we don't look right in front of us at the little tiny moments or inchstones that can build the milestone as we go along. And those little moments that we have are massive, right? And so we always have to have something to look forward to, but this is the one that I don't want to talk about, and I don't ever want to breach the subject because then I have to be held accountable. And this is self-control. Self-control is probably one of the toughest things in the entire world, but everything seems to lie in wait with self-control. If you look at anything that that has an incredible result, most of those things come from a foundation of self-control. Well, when we have something to look forward to, we can control self a little bit better. And so the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, this little bit, this proverb today hit me so hard, and it was all about self-control. And that self-control will come from having something to look forward to. Thank you, Mama, for giving me that wisdom. Why don't you say that we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never know, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Have you ever had the time where you wanted to react in a certain way and you had to pull yourself back? Where you heard somebody maybe talking ill to your family or to your friends, and you seriously wanted to snatch, what my pops would say, was snatch a knot in their tail and stomp on it. Well, as much as I read the word, that I'm in the word and all those things, there's times, seriously, where someone will say something or they'll offend my family or they'll offend a friend of mine. And I seriously just want to take them and I want to, smack them a little bit or shake them and help them to realize that, wake up and don't do that to my family or the people that I love. But it takes self-control to step back. Sometimes it takes self-awareness because, there's a large portion of those times where me not being a fighter that I get knocked out. And so I don't want to have to go home and explain why I got knocked out because I reacted in a certain way. And that takes self-control. Self-control is probably one of the hardest things that we'll ever work with. And in Proverbs 25, it dives into this, but it just like God always does. He does it in little inchstones, little bite-sized pieces to help us. And he takes us on a journey. This journey today was first when I listened to it. Then I came home and I wrote about it, and I read about it, and then I wrote about it. So I listened, I read, and I wrote. And now I'm going to speak about it. And self-control is, again, one of the hardest things to, number one, fathom, right? It's easy to talk about. It's hard to do. It has tons of rewards. The pitfalls of it, or the lack of it, is there's a lot of destruction when that happens. And it seems so simple, and it seems like we would choose it all the time. And it's elusive. And it being elusive, it was amazing because in Proverbs 25 today, what God was able to give us is just a way and a blueprint to walk us down, but he takes us on a journey that way. So for those of you tuning in for the first time, welcome. It's The Vibe with Kelly Cardenas, and I'm your host, and that's my name. And we are going to have an incredible time. We go through the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, and we go back to 3,000-year-old wisdom that could be applicable in today. So not just about then this has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with ritual. It has all to do with just a relationship with wisdom. And where do we get wisdom? We get wisdom from the fear of God. Fear of God will come from respecting him. And the only way we could respect anything is if we spend time with it, and it proves and shows that it's consistent, doing exactly what it says. And that will gain us respect. That'll give us wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge. And then everything else is built on that wisdom. So let's hop right into Proverbs 25. So the quote from my mom, we always need something to look forward to. Let me ask you this, in today, right now, do you have something to look forward to? Do you have something to look forward to in your job, in your relationship, in your family, in your vacations, whatever it is? We always, I tell you, always need something to look forward to. But as God talks about it through this, and you'll see, he'll let you know that we don't need to look too forward. We need to make sure that we're present where we're at and focus on those little inchstones. So think about this, is seek God and not good. In verse 1, or verse 2 and 3 in Proverbs 25, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, to search out a matter is the glory of kings. As the heavens are high and the earth is deep, so the hearts of kings are unsearchable. Let me ask you this. When we go into a situation, are we seeking God or are we seeking good? And if we're seeking God, what'll happen is we'll gain self-control because it'll be his will, his plan, and his timing. And that is one of the hardest things to be able to be challenged with, because a lot of times we want to control stuff. So the first thing in self-control is to ask yourself, or to think about, like, seek God and not good. Because sometimes the thing that is good right then is not what God would have for you at that moment. And that's the weirdest thing to understand. Another thing that I realized was in verse 4 and 5, and when we go into that in Proverbs 25, it says, "Remove the dross from the silver, and the silversmith will produce a vessel. Remove the wicked officials from the king's presence, and his throne will be established through righteousness." Watch this. Become aware of the impurities, right? So when he says, remove the dross from the silver, and the silversmith can produce a vessel. What they do with silver is they heat it up into a molten state. All the impurities come to the top. They scrape it off, which is called the dross. They do that, and it becomes sterling silver. But it takes intense heat to bring the impurities to the top. And through intense heat in our lives, whether it be trials or fires, things like that, it will have the tendency to draw out the impurities within us. So with these impurities, number one, you got to become aware of them. Number two, you have to truly acknowledge them. And number three, you just it will give you the freedom to aspire to be able to move on to more. So make sure that we become aware of the impurities that we have. We acknowledge those impurities, and then we get them gone so we can start moving forward and have something great to look forward to. And this is at the beginning, the very, very foundation of self-control. That's in 4 and 5. And as we go through with this is humble yourself or life will. I've learned this so many times where I beat my chest and I say, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. And then life says, squash. And if you're in that spot right now, where you've got to the mountaintop and you're just beating your chest and you're like, yo, I'm invincible. And then bang, life hits you. And if you've been hit by life, then you're human. And I want you to give yourself grace, but realize that anybody in the world is not going to live on the top of the mountain. You're going to get to the top of the mountain to be able to have a great view for a little bit of time, to pick out the valley, to go down. And the valley is going to be dark and deep. And what it's going to be for is for rest, to get you ready to climb the next mountain. So in verse 6 and 7, it talks about humbling yourself for life will. Do not exalt yourself in the king's presence, and do not claim a place among his great men. It is better for him to say, come up here, than for him to humiliate you before his nobles. So let other people praise you. Like, letting other people praise you is probably one of the greatest things that you could ever do. Just put in the work. Put in the work. Know you did the work. You know it in your heart. And that is self-control. That self-control where you just continue to do over and over again. And I just said over and over again until somebody starts singing your praises. And I promise you they will. In this self-control thing, we got to learn to mind our business and just simply focus forward. Watch this. In verse 8 through 10, it talks about look to the sides will create anxiety. If I look to the left or to the right, or to the left or to the right, then I'm going to compare myself, and that's going to create anxiety. I'm going to think about all the things I could be doing. If I look back, it's going to cause depression. If I just simply work my land and look forward and have self-control where I have those blinders on, it'll create peace, joy, and love. Do we want peace, joy, and love, or do we want depression and anxiety? Anxiety to the sides, depression to the back, because you can't change it. Look forward, peace, love, joy. It's a pretty simple one. Here's the traits of self-control. Ruling rightly, accepting the rebuke of the wise, and trustworthy messenger. That's in verse 11 through 13. And when we think about that, like the traits of it, when you see a person that has self-control, they'll rule rightly, they'll accept the rebuke of the wise or the correction of the wise, and they'll be a trustworthy messenger in your life. They'll bring good news to you all the time. How to spot someone who lacks self-control is in verse number 14. And this one was strong. It says, like clouds without rain is one who boasts of gifts never given. And I just wrote this, talking loud and saying nothing, and big hat and no cattle. You could spot a person from a mile away that doesn't have self-control, that's just talking loud and has nothing behind it. We've all been around that person. So here's some more traits of self-control. Is patience in verse 15. And it says, through patience, a ruler can be persuaded, and a gentle tongue can break a bone. Patience. When you sit back, I find the wisest people in the room are the people who say very, very little. Sit in that for a second. There's a guy in my men's group. His name is Darren, and he always just sits and consumes. A guy named Mike Small sits and consumes. But I tell you, when you get a chance and you ask them a question, they're the wisest people in the room. Why? Because they have patience. Another trait of self-control is that you'll know the right amount. And this is what we were talking about earlier in verse 16 and 17. It talks about this, and we need to look forward. Like, we need to have something to look forward to. But if we look too far forward, we get so locked into where the future is, we don't connect with what's happening right now in these little Inchstones, these little moments that can happen. So this is the tough part of one. So some people would say the balancing act. I don't believe it's a balancing act. Just when we get focused on God, He won't have us look at a 10-year plan. He'll give us a vision, but then He'll keep us focused in that moment and give us our daily bread. And guess what will happen with that daily bread every single day? Before you know it, your vision will be right in front of you. So you will know the right amount in verse 16 and 17. It says, if you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it, you will vomit. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house. Too much of you, and they will hate you. Know the right amount. So look forward, but not too far forward. Look right where your feet are at. Be present and experience these little tiny Inchstones. But always remember, you got to have something to look forward to, right? And so the traits of someone who lacks self-control, and this is the journey that God takes us on through this proverb, is in verse 18 and 19, he gives us the traits of someone who lacks self-control. It says that they don't tell the truth, they're not reliable, they're selfish, they stir the pot, and they're not self-aware. Imagine that. You can, again, see that from a mile away. If you got those people in your life, if you got people who don't tell you the truth, they're not reliable, they're selfish, they stir the pot, they are not self-aware, it's not that they're bad people, they just don't have self-control. And when you don't have self-control, guess where you're focused? Most of the time, when we don't have self-control, this is a crazy thing, we're just focused on self. When you get focused on what God would have you for you on this particular day, in this moment, in this little tiny inchstone, what's amazing is he will give that, and he will give you self-control. It sounds so strange. What about when people do you wrong? This is the hard part, because when we have self-control and then somebody comes up against us, what do? In verse 21, 22, 23, and 24, he explicitly talks about this. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. Watch this. Do right always. Don't let someone take you outside of your character. I watch the NBA all the time. I've been watching, and I'm sad that the Warriors are out of the playoffs. But what I've been noticing is the refs always see and call the foul on the second person that did it. And no matter how a person provokes you, don't allow them to take you out of your character. And so what do we do when people do us wrong? Now, the first one is, how do we handle when someone deliberately harms you? Number two is, what about when people talk bad about you? Because in today's society with TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all these things, the comments can hurt people. But when you have self-control and you realize that even if someone does us wrong, then we do the right thing, that is the great part of self-control. The last one is, you don't have to stay in it. Do right and move forward. And that's in verse 24. Better to live in a corner of a roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife. And it's not just talking about a spouse as far as a wife. It's talking about the people in your life. Do good and then move on. Do good, move on. Have something to focus on and move forward to. That is the self-control. Those who have self-control will bring good news in verse 25. Self-control is like brushing your teeth, making your bed, changing your underwear, and wiping your butt. No matter how many times you do it, you must do it again. And that's in verse 26. In verse 26, here we go. Like muddied spring or a polluted well are the righteous who give way to the wicked. No matter how often you do right, you got to keep doing right. Self-control breeds self-control. But once you don't have self-control, it's not self-control anymore. So self-control is only self-control when it's self-control. And as we finish up, it's to stay humble. Like, simply stay humble and give it up to him. Our self-control begins when we allow him to give us the inchstones to focus us forward. See, in verse 27, it says, it's not good to eat too much honey, nor is it honorable to search out matters that are too deep, right? He says, just stay humble. Don't eat too much. Don't take on too much. And also, you don't need to search out every single thing. Give it to him. Is it a good idea or is it a God idea? Are you seeking good or are you seeking God? And when we seek God, it's amazing because he gives us all the rest of it. And then the last one is just self-control will protect you. And I want to read this verse because it was massive at the end. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. So at the beginning of this proverb, again, it's the whole kind of roller coaster where he just says, like, we need to have something to look forward to. To be able to do that, we got to have self-control because we can't have it now. He gives us the basis of it to simply seek him and not seek God and not good. Seek him. Become aware of the things that are challenging in your life and that are the impurities. Humble yourself. Mind your business. And then he gives us the traits of self-control. He tells us how to spot someone who lacks self-control. Then he tells us more great things about self-control. And then the traits of someone who lacks self-control again. And then it comes to the point where when we have self-control and then someone does us wrong, he gives us the answer there in verse 21 through 24. And then he gives us more traits of self-control. And then he tells us that self-control has to be consistent and has to be every single day, just like a relationship with him. Just like anything with your business. With your business, if you sit and you put it on autopilot, I can tell you this, it's going to crumble at some point. You got to be consistent with it. And it's like love. You got to constantly give it. But to be able to constantly give it, you got to be able to constantly receive it. And where can you receive it? Endlessly from his heart to yours. And then to simply stay humble and not try and take on too much. Because what starts to happen is when the great things happen, we'll have the tendency to be like, oh, great things happen. I need more of it. I need more. I need more. I need more. And what God is saying is just stay humble and know the right amount to be able to consume. And the right amount is right here, right now, because all these moments will create magic in your life. And lastly, it's just the self-control will protect you. Self-control will protect everything, your personal, your professional, your spiritual, your financial. It will protect everything. But the crazy thing is, self-control is when we get our focus off of self and onto God and what he would have for us on that particular day. As we finish today, we all need something to look forward to. Hopefully today you have something to look forward to. Maybe it's a beach time, and it could be the smallest, littlest thing. You know what I look forward to in May? Watching the playoffs and being a bad dad, a bad husband, because I lay on the couch and I just want to focus in on the NBA playoffs. I look forward to drinking a root beer out of the bottle of IBC. I look forward to an ice cream sandwich. And this morning when I woke up, I looked forward to coming and spending some time with you guys. We all need something to look forward to. Let me read this to you as we finish. Self-control is at the foundation of most great things, although one of the toughest and most elusive aspects in our life. The benefits of self-control are immeasurable, and the consequences of its lack are devastating. With that said, it seems like it would be a simple choice, and it is, when we focus on a one-on-one relationship with God and surrender to his will, his plan, and his timing. In this, we will find self-control and continue to have something to look forward to. This has been the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. I appreciate you. Stay tuned, too. We are going to, on the podcast, we have this, which is the Inchstones, and the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, which is a commentary that I do. Also, we have You Have to Meet My Friends, where I call my friends randomly. I go live, and I have them on the podcast. And then we also get to interview some of the most iconic people in the entire world. I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, and commenting on everything here. And I love you. And my name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make